Hey everyone! You're listening to the TEN7 Podcast, where we get together every fortnight, and sometimes more often, to talk about technology, business, and the humans in it. I'm your host, Ivan Stegic. My guest today is Emmy Award winner Erica Hanna, owner of Puke Rainbows Creative, a creative content strategy and video production studio based in Minneapolis. She is a public speaker, a video coach, online course instructor, director, producer, photographer, writer, and strategist. Her studio's mantra is "When life gives you rain, puke a rainbow." And I feel like I've known about Puking Rainbows since I first started on Twitter over 10 years ago. So I'm really looking forward to talking to Erica today. Erica, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. I know that I talked about it earlier today, that I've just been so pumped and looking forward to this. So the day is here.
Yay! And that slow-mo you made on Twitter was amazing. Just really so indicative of how creative you are and just wonderful. What a great energy to get from you.
And then I'll reuse it on St. Patrick's Day, so that'll be great.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's the day everybody's listening to this episode on. Yay!
Be safe, everyone.
So, yes, insane, please. Where are you joining me from today, Erica?
Yeah, I'm actually in the Twin Cities, so it's nice and sunny here, just like, I believe that's where you're at too, right?
Yep, I'm right in Minneapolis, right close to downtown in the Lake of the Isles region, and you're right, it is a blue sky out there after having sub 20 degree weather over the last couple of weeks. It's been nuts,
Right.
But it's nice to be hopeful and feeling the warm air and the sunshine and getting ready for spring.
Yeah, some hope finally, right?
Yes, indeed. Before I ask your origin story and where you grew up and we find out all about that, I want to talk about Puking Rainbows because to me it's synonymous with Twitter. I think it's been around forever as far as I'm concerned. But tell me about the origin. What does it mean and where does it come from?
Yeah, so for me personally, Puking Rainbows came from this idea of when life gives you rain, puke a rainbow. So a lot like the when life gives you lemons, make lemonade type of thing. The story originated with me doing hashtag puke rainbows when a young follower of mine on Twitter, at least 10 years ago, this was when I was the person on Twitter that, I'm sorry, I was so annoying, like very annoying. Like I was that person that like posted positive quotes all the time. And that was kind of my only contribution, like was these positive quotes by philosophers. And this kid from New York City was following me, and he was probably 16 at the time. His name was Juan, and he sent me a direct message and he said, "Say, I like following you and I get half the stuff you say, but I don't understand about half of the quotes. So can you kind of explain where you're coming from usually?" And I said, "Yeah, man, it's super easy. Usually what I mean is when life gives you rain, puke a frickin' rainbow." And he's like, "Oh, I get it. Okay, so from that lens." So then what happened was every time he would make a choice in life that was benefiting him in a wonderful way, getting his homework done, that kind of thing. He always used to call me Twit Sis, like Twitter sister. And he would use hashtag Puke Rainbows so that I could see it and I wouldn't miss it. And it was so funny because then this mindset started where I kind of started doing the same thing. I'm like, oh, puke rainbows. Hey, we're just going to make the best of the situation, which was also a little bit indicative of my filming style because I didn't always have the biggest budgets where I was, So it's like we're going to make something amazing out of almost nothing, but we're going to still make it look like it costs a lot of money, right? And so I started doing puke rainbows as well. And yeah, so then when when it came time, I was finally making enough money as a freelancer. And my accountant, who was this very, at the time, very, how can I describe her? Like, I don't want to say mousy. That sounds really mean. But she's just very straight-laced, nothing like...
Conservative?
Like, yes. Yes.
Maybe in the classic definition of conservative?
The classic definition, yes. That's what I was struggling with. So she looked at me and she said, well, should we do Erica Hanna video since we need to name your company when we file these taxes? And I said, no, you know what? I don't think so. That's just not me. And right at that time, my phone dinged and it was like, bring, Puke Rainbows. And I said to her, I think Puke Rainbows. And she looked at me, Yvonne, she looked at me like I had 4 heads. She was like, no, mm-mm. And she refused. She sat there and she refused to write it down. And I was like, you need to write it down. And she's like, I'm not going to. That's ridiculous. And no one in their right mind, if you think you're going to grow this business, it will never happen with the name Puke Rainbows, because nobody who takes themselves seriously would ever do that. And I said, good. Okay, cool. I don't want everyone to take themselves too seriously. So if that's like the barrier to working with somebody who has a good track record, then it sounds like a them problem, like if you can't get over the word puke, I don't know. You're kind of self-selecting your clients already just by the name. And I think that's awesome. I mean, you're kind of setting a line in the sand here. Isn't it so funny? Because I do think that that's what happened, and I didn't even realize that that's what would happen. But it does seem like now, if I'm talking to friends of mine in the production world and hearing these horror stories about clients, and then all I hear, especially from my crew, is, oh, we love being on shoots with you because you get the most fun people. Like, we always have so much fun with them, and nobody's ever mean or whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's so great to hear.
What made you want to start a company like that? I mean, it's fun working in an environment like that where work doesn't feel like work. But did you have a motivation to, having a company that can be like that? What happened before Puke Rainbows and to influence this climate and this environment that you've created?
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer to that is, I didn't want to have a company, to be honest. Off at the beginning, I didn't. It came about kind of by a happy accident. I did this project where I was doing coffee with people from social media because I felt like I had a lot of online friends, and that just sounded weird to me. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I read this really great article in Inc. magazine about this person that did 50 coffees in a year. And I thought I could do that. That would be fun. And so I set out and did it. And it was so insightful and so much more than I could have ever dreamed it would have been. And most of it is because when I would sit down and have these conversations with people that were not in my industry, right? They weren't in video, most of them. And they didn't work with me in TV and didn't work with me at an agency. And when we would sit there and we would talk about business and talk about philanthropy and talk about just anything, I would say 75% of them, unprompted actually, and it just shocked me, kept saying, okay, so when are you going to go out on your own? And I'm like, that's funny. I like paychecks. Those are great. I was just like, I like being a cog in the wheel. And they'd go, do you really though? And I'm like, no, I do. I like it. I like the stability. And they're like, do you really though? And I think, if someone says something to you that many times, finally it kind of breaks through, right? And I just started thinking about it. And it wasn't until And I had a bad case of imposter syndrome, if I'm going to be really honest with you. So a lot of the time when people would ask me to do speaking or, was asked to be the keynote speaker for 32 under 32. And I was like, why me? What? That doesn't make any sense. I just was miffed. And it really wasn't until working with Prince that he convinced me that I wasn't just a garbage pile of a human, to be honest.
Awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple of guests on the show that have worked with Prince in the past, and they've described their experiences working with him as generally quite positive and have led to other careers and other industries. How did you work with Prince? What was the capacity? Were you freelancing? Were you part of another agency? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, again, I would say it's a little bit of a happy accident. I actually said no initially due to the imposter syndrome. I was approached by a producer friend of mine from a different network, and he said, "Hey, I want you to come down with me to Paisley Park. I have this project I'm working on for Prince, and I want to put something together for him." And I said, "Oh, I think that you have the wrong person. Like, I don't think that I'm the person for that. And I work at a TV station. Like, I don't think I'm really, up to that level, And, he said, "Hey, here's the deal. He's probably not even going to be there. It'll probably be just his band tonight. So at least come down with me tonight for the rehearsal." Because they were going to do a concert down there. And I said, "Okay, fine. I'll go for the rehearsal. I'll meet the band. That's cool. I'll get to go inside Paisley Park. Awesome." And I talked to a different friend of mine who had done some work for Prince, and he confirmed that. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's true. He probably won't show up. He didn't show up half the time, like when we were supposed to do things anyway, or he was too busy with something else. So yeah, you'll get to meet the band. That'll be fun. Go down there, check out Paisley Park." And I went down there, and we were working with the band. And it was fun. It's Paisley Park, right? And
Great.
Then this moment happened where I had taken the camera from my first cameraman because he wasn't doing exactly what I wanted him to do. And so I was just showing him like the move I wanted him to make up the fret of the guitar. And suddenly I looked up at my cameraman and said, like, "Okay, do you get it?" And he had this look on his face, and he was looking over my shoulder. And under his breath, with his, teeth clenched, he just goes, "He's standing right there." And I was like, "Prince is behind me?" And he's like, "Yes, he's behind you." And I was like, "Oh my God." And just turned around, still had the camera in my hand, and I had no idea what to say. I'm like, "Hello, Mr. formerly
Mr.
known
Prince.
symbol Prince person." Like, how do you even address him?
What do you say? Exactly.
Yeah.
Your Highness.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I had no idea. And he just kind of motioned with his finger, "Come here. I want to see what you did there." And I took the camera over to him, and he looked at it. And here is the second part of Puke Rainbows. I thought I was going to throw up. I'm Prince.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm not even kidding you. My stomach was just like, this is it. This is the moment. This is when everyone finds out that I'm the worst, and I am kicked out of Paisley Park forever, and I'm ruined, and I have to go back to Market 152 or whatever. And he starts shaking his head back and forth, kind of like the no symbol. The signature.
Like,
and I was like, "Great.
Yeah, yeah.
This is garbage." Right. And he looked up at Pete, and our producer, and he said, "I thought you told me that she produced video." And he's like, yeah. Uh-huh. And he looks at me, and he takes a step forward, and we're very close. And he said, "From now on, I want you to tell people that you produce art, because this is not video, this is art." And
wow.
I wanted to puke for a completely different reason. I was just like, like, what? Yeah. And then he gave me a huge hug and he's like, let's make something the world's never seen before. And we spent, most of the night there and then ended up filming one of his pajama parties that he had, which ended up being a concert that lasted until about 8:00 in the morning.
Wow.
So there's about 1,000 people in there, and we had pancakes at midnight. So
Wow.
it was a blast. Yeah.
So a couple of reactions to that. First of all, he gave you a hug, like touching, and also a concert and people all in the same space. Like, that's so foreign to me right now, being
So
a year
crazy.
into it's so crazy. So that's a reaction.
Right.
The other reaction is, oh my God, what a turn of events in your brain. Because obviously everyone around you isn't thinking that, right? And so the whole imposter syndrome is fascinating to think about because I think we all have it.
Yeah.
And I think we all spend too much time thinking about it. And if we all have it, doesn't that mean none of us have it?
Oh, that's such a good point. I love that you said that. Yes.
So
Yes.
I guess I wonder, like, do you see that as a turning point in your career or as being a person, or do you still feel like an imposter?
There are times when I feel maybe not. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's as bad for sure. There are definitely times I still get nervous and question like, ooh, can I handle this? Maybe it's just a really huge project, but I think that we all do that. That's not necessarily imposter syndrome. But no, I think that he did a pretty good job of kind of wiping that from my head. And I don't know if it was so much what he said about art or if it was more along the lines of, this sounds really strange, but the only time I felt that kind of energy is when I was in the presence of Prince and when I was in the presence of a Nobel Peace Prize winner. That's the only time. Like that, you just have, like, there's just some people have that energy that kind of fills you just by standing next to them, that you're like, I want to be better. I want to be better. I want to make a difference. I want to kill this, Yeah. So,
Yeah. Who is, I have to ask who the Nobel Prize winner was.
So I met Muhammad Yunus. He was amazing. He's kind of known as the founder of microfunding, kind of like Kiva, that kind of stuff. So he has a lot of like microfunding, microloan, little mini banks that he concepted. And it was probably 10 years ago now. But, that was an amazing exchange as well, because I had asked him to sign a book and, I don't know, he stopped and he like looked me in the eye and he just paused and put his pen down and he patted me on the back and he said, I have a feeling I will ask you for your autograph one day. And I was like, what? It was just so bizarre, but amazing and wonderful. And he probably says that to everybody he meets, but, I don't know.
He still inspired you and left certainly an indelible mark on your psyche. And that's what you want. That's the kind of person you want to be, I think. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that, I try to keep that in mind when I'm teaching workshops and stuff like that, that the technical information I'm teaching is almost secondary, and primary for me is to really help people know that whatever they're creating is great. It really is. Like, I'm so glad that you're here to try to learn how to create bigger and better things. And the thing that you made today is amazing because you made a thing, So, yeah.
You're clearly very passionate about content and high quality content, and I know that part of your mission isn't just to create high quality video content. It's really to try to tell the story of a business's heart. And when you think of a business, I think you don't really think about its heart because those are human qualities. But of course, humans make a business. And I think you're looking for the essence of a company, its pulse, as you've described it. Can you tell me a little bit about how you do that? Every
Yeah,
business has a heart, you've said.
they do. It does, and part of that actually comes from when I was working at Bring Me the News with my partner in crime there. Her name is Carrie, and she's wonderful, and she kind of did a lot of the data analytics side of things. And we would sit and we would talk about data, and she actually said to me once, data is just an indicator of how healthy the heart is of the company. So I look at data as the heartbeat. And I thought that was just such a wonderful way to put data for someone like me who is like, data, what? No, feeling, like I don't, and for a way to kind of bridge that gap of, they can work together in such a beautiful way. If we really try to understand each other, both the data and creative sides. But then when it comes down to my own kind of formula, I guess, for finding the business's heart, it usually comes from a lot of conversations. I'm not going to lie. I don't think necessarily that you can get an idea of a business's heart just by looking at like their branding document, that type of thing. Their brand for sure, but their heart, I don't know. For me, the heart of the company is how are you making a difference? Who are you helping? And how is this making the world better? And I think that that's the truth for most companies, that even though that we have these other, more logical goals, right? More data-driven goals. One of those things is usually true, that you're helping somebody with what you're doing, right? But then when I parse it out into video, I like to make sure that we're getting into specifics. I always tell my clients, I don't want to make a video that your competitor could put their logo on at the end, and it could be true for them as well. Because I feel like that's a lot of the times what happens with these big grand scale branding videos, right? It's like a bunch of stock footage and some pretty words, like teamwork, and you're like, that's great. That applies to every single person, every single business in this field. Like just put their logo at the end, But really what the heart is are the stories of the people who've been affected, stories of people who work there, how it got started. And, I oftentimes say to the CEOs, when was the last time you talked to your janitor? Like, why do they love working here? Do they love working here?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the business's heart is the people in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what always makes it unique,
Yeah.
That's always what makes it unique. Yep.
So you have this successful business called Puke Rainbows. You've been at WCCO here in Minneapolis and Bring Me the News.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up? Where was the beginning of Erica, Hanna, and what does that early childhood, high school look like for you?
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in rural Iowa. So our town has, two stoplights now. When I was growing up, we had one stoplight, but two stoplights, which is just huge.
Upgrade, 100% more.
Right. Definitely. And Forest City, Iowa is where they make Winnebagos. So, that's pretty much, I would say 90% of the town is employed there.
Wow.
And, rural Iowa. So I grew up with a grandfather who was a painter. He was a professional painter, and I tried to paint for as a child through high school, and I was terrible. I was terrible. Like, I'm not even joking, like just the worst. And so I had it in my head. I actually had it in my head that I wasn't a creative person. I'm like, I think I'm just not creative. I'm not meant for this. I can't do art, And so then when I finally got to college, I went to Waldorf College in the same small town, Forest City. I took a video class. I was going to be a radio major, and then I had to take a video class, and it was just really easy, For me, it just came very naturally, and I don't know. I still looked at it as, it's a set of rules. It all makes sense, just and whatnot. And it honestly, it wasn't until like I said, that work with Prince, when he said, you don't create video, you create art, where, man, it all just kind of collided, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was like, wait, what? Video's art? What?
Yeah, he kind of gave you permission to be an artist, didn't he?
Absolutely. And so it was so nice to be able to kind of relate to my grandpa on a new level then. And then I told him that story. I said, hey, Grandpa, do you know that I thought that I wasn't creative at all because I would sit next to you and you'd be making these meticulously wonderful paintings, and I would just, it looked like someone vomited all over the canvas, like it's just bad. And he's like, what, really? So yeah, isn't it funny how we tell ourselves something and then we find out something completely the opposite later on in life. Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane. You've also said that you currently live for making video more fun, more accessible and exciting. I screen captured a tweet of yours here for my notes, and I want to know how you do that. What's the secret sauce? Because it's hard to be in remote, and we've been a distributed company for a long time now, and there are days when, Zoom is not your best friend.
Sure.
And I would love to know what the secret is, if you've figured it out yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of depends on what part of video, you're looking to be talking about, but when I talk about that I live for making it more fun and more accessible, it's just that. It's just that I want it, one, to make it accessible at all, because I do feel like there is this misnomer that video is way too hard for the average person to take on. And that's just not true. And I think part of that actually has been, I think my own industry is guilty of that, is guilty of some elitism, maybe would be the word, where I've heard it from people in my industry where they say, oh, why are you teaching people how to use their smartphones? Because, we have these cameras that are $20,000 and they're so much better quality and all this lighting and it's so amazing. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome that we can do that, but not everybody has 30 grand to hire us to do it. So then do we just tell them, sorry, you're out of luck? Like what, and they're like, oh, you're taking clients away from us by, teaching this. And I'm like, I'm not taking clients away from us by teaching this. Like,
exactly.
If anything, it's like, empowering them to do their own video content that they can put out there and see what's successful.
You're probably taking clients away from yourself by doing that. Right? You're empowering them so they don't need you anymore. I mean, this has been a central tenet for TEN7. Like, we want our clients to be able to do the things. We empower them to do that.
Absolutely. And actually, I've talked to clients before that approach me, and maybe they'll have like kind of a smaller but doable budget, especially nonprofits, where they'll say, like, we have X amount of dollars. Let's just say like we have 10K, like to do a little video for our end of the year, synopsis to all of our donors. And I'll say, okay, that's great, but is it better for you to do one video, or is it better for you to learn how to do video from me, to use your smartphones, to buy a light kit, and to send out weekly updates to your donors? I just want to make sure that you're using that money as wisely as possible. And the nice thing is that half the time when we do that, I mean, they still come back to do those super high end things, once a year or whatever. And then they have a better idea of what their audience is actually grasping onto for content too. They're like, hey, we've been trying this for a year. They love this, and this. So let's make a really, really kick butt video about this, and this, so. Yeah.
So the secret sauce is teach them to do the work that you're doing, enable them, and then they will come back for you to do even more work.
Yeah, sometimes that's how it works. Yeah.
Not always. No. What's interesting to me is if you look at a cross-section of the YouTubers these days that are making these, that are really successful and have millions of subscribers. I'm going to out myself now and tell you some of the people I watch, right? Okay. But MKBHD, if you look at Unbox Therapy, if you look at Linus Tech Tips, if you look at any of these, iJustine, they all have millions of followers, and they all have really expensive video equipment and really expensive lighting equipment and crews that have grown leaps and bounds. And they all started at the beginning of YouTube and at the beginning of this whole fad as 200 subscribers, smartphone producers, and then evolved.
Yep.
So that's mind-blowing. Are you at a point where you have a 8K, $30,000 camera and doing things like... I'm not. It's not necessary, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends on what you're looking to do, right? Like, there's definitely projects that I get where, they need stuff that's in 4K. It's like they're gonna. I mean, eventually, obviously, when the pandemic's over, it's like, hey, we're gonna put an ad up in a movie theater, stuff like that, or network broadcasts. Like, for sure, we're shooting in super, super amazing equipment. But yeah, if the average person that's out there, and even like small businesses, it's just not a necessity. It's not, so it's just it's a matter of learning like how to light yourself so that you look decent and having a nice enough microphone to sound okay, and yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Extra Emily. I know I mentioned mentioned her to you earlier today. I don't know if you got a chance to see her Twitch stream at all.
Yeah, I jumped on it really quick before I hopped in here with you. Yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about learning online and how our kids are all in school and they're using Zoom, and how online learning has changed in the last year or two. Well, definitely in the last year, but certainly in the last year or two. So for those of you that are listening who don't know about Extra Emily, this is a teacher online who is teaching classes just like a Twitch stream, a gaming Twitch stream would be. She's trying to meet her class attendees where she thinks her students are every day in a Twitch gaming stream. And so she's implementing chat, and she's doing things like trying to gamify things by extending hours on a deadline for a homework assignment if 5 smart questions get asked during the class. I'm fascinated by the fact that here's a teacher that's really looked at this situation with online learning and is trying to implement something new. And it's so engaging. I want to watch it. What do you think about that?
Oh, I thought it was just wonderful. I tell you what, I hopped on and she wasn't live, so I just watched one of her broadcasts from Sunday. And even then, it just felt so good. Like there isn't another word that I can use really. It was just exciting and fast paced. And I think above all, what I loved about her style, of course, she had like you said, she has the gaming in there and the quizzes and everything. And that's wonderful. And that's interactive. But also as a teacher, her teaching style, what I loved is that she's naming people by name constantly, constantly. And that's something that we can all do without even implementing the extra like gaming stuff. You know, it's just like, hey, I see you, I see you, I see you, I see you. You know, like she's just shouting out to people all the time, enough so that they'll stay engaged and wake up a little bit, right? So I thought that was really cool, really cool.
How do we apply this to adults? Can we? I mean, it was too fast paced for me. I could not keep up. I look at that chat stream going up and up and up, and I'm like, yeah, I can't do this.
It's interesting, right? Like the chat streams like that. And I think we forget that it's like, okay, we don't have to read the entire thing. Like it's her, she's scanning it, she's responding to it, you know. But I do think that you're right. It's like, how do we apply this to adults? And I think the thing that I can come up with right now but this is, again, like it's different for every adult, right? Because we've all kind of figured out our learning style. For me, my learning style right now, due to time, is micro learning, like just little things. I love using, what's that language app? Duo? Is it Duo?
Duolingo.
Yeah, Duolingo, love it. I also use a public speaking app called Speako, and that's really helped me, especially since I had, that bad car accident in October of 2019. So that helped me get back on my feet real quick, you know. And the micro learning, I think, has been wonderful. That's also how I got into meditation. So I think Headspace, the app Headspace, has been really popular for people as well. You know, I don't know. How about you? What how do you like to learn?
You know, I kind of fluctuate between what you've called microlearning, which is a term I haven't heard before, and then doing deeper engagements with articles. And I kind of watch video to learn, but more to kind of relax. And so it's sort of passive learning. It's kind of keeping me on top of technology by watching YouTube videos. But then I feel like I go deep into something like a political issue or a particular technology, and I do a lot of deep reading and long-term reading. And that's been more something that I've been doing lately as opposed to something I did 2-3 years ago. I kind of just stopped social media for the longest time, and because I felt so distracted and so, going from leaf to leaf like a frog jumping on a pond, right? And it was okay, but it just wears on you, and you need to go deep. And so that's sort of what I've been doing lately. It's fascinating how it changes as well. It wasn't like this 10 years ago, and it certainly wasn't like this 20 years ago. So it feels like learning is just changing all the time, even now.
Absolutely. One thing that I have also noticed, not just in the video sphere, but I'm sure that since obviously you're in the podcast area, like you're the pro here. Here are these little bite-sized podcasts that are coming out. And how do you feel about that?
I have opinions about that.
Okay.
When we first started the TEN7 Podcast, which was 112 episodes ago, 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, we actually started by calling it an audio cast because we didn't want to do a podcast, and we started it with 5-minute chunks because we thought, who wants to listen to a podcast for more than 30 minutes? Like, I don't have the time for that. Why would someone else have the time for that? Yeah. And so we did audio casts that were short, and they were like three points you get through and you're done. And in retrospect, like, it wasn't the right time to be doing that. And we evolved from that, and so that's why we have a long form 30 to 45 minute show where we can go deep into someone's life and explore their origin. But it's interesting you would mention a short audio, because like I thought we were done and that was the wrong way to do it. But if you're thinking that this is something that might be interesting now and in the future, well, maybe we need to revisit that. And maybe there's a sister podcast we do. Tell me about what you think.
Yeah, so I think part of it is I also, and I know I talk about this publicly, so it's not going to be a surprise. I have ADHD, so concentrating for long spans of time, it's either like I'm hyper focused and I'll sit, and I used to be able to edit for 12 hours at a time, right? It's either hyper focus or all over the place, and you can't keep my focus longer than 5 minutes. So it's kind of like one or the other extreme, right? But I think what kind of changed my mind, and I do think that you're right, it really depends on the subject of the podcast and the format of the podcast. I think that's such a great point that you made. I think the one that I'm thinking of that I stumbled upon is called Before Breakfast. And the reason why I like it is because it's a self-help podcast. And I would get a little overwhelmed with like an hour-long self-help podcast, right? Where I'm just like, wow, all this stuff that I am not doing that I really should apparently be doing to make
That's
my
not
life
helping me.
way better. Yeah, and then I just feel worse. I'm like, thanks, But what I like about, I think her name's Laura, that hosts Before Breakfast, it's just these little nuggets. I don't think they're ever longer than 5 minutes, And it's just like, hey, and the way that she approaches it is like a suggestion instead of like, you have to do this for your life to be better. It's like, this is something you could try today if you want. And if you don't, have a good day. Happy breakfast.
What I think you're describing is one complete idea and nugget of information in a short amount of time that can be consumed quickly and that you feel like you've learned something.
Yeah.
And that wasn't what we were trying to do. We were just trying to cram as much as we could into 5 minutes. And I think that was the wrong approach. But I think you might be onto something here.
Yeah, it's like, hey, if I can just learn one new thing today, that's pretty awesome. Because at the end of the year, holy cow, even if I didn't implement a bunch of those things, at least I know they exist,
Okay, so now I have a new idea for a new show, and I'm sure Jonathan, my producer, and Brian, my writer, are all going to be all over this for more things to do. It's okay. We will credit you with the inspiration behind this, Erica.
I'm so excited to hear more about it. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we'll definitely be talking about it. Before we wrap up, what's top of mind for you right now? What are you looking forward to? What are you excited about in the world?
Yeah, what am I excited about in the world? Well, I'm excited that we're getting a handle on the COVID situation, it seems like.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get outside since spring is coming. Knock on wood. It's Minnesota, of
Exactly.
course. And then work-wise, I'm really pumped. I just got signed to do a 6-week speaking series with AARP for a virtual speaking series. So I'm super pumped about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm really, really excited. I'm also doing some video work with them. So they've been just wonderful. And then I also am going to have some one-off workshops that I'm teaching here in the coming months because I haven't done my smartphone video boot camp in a while, and I've had some requests for it, and I just want to make sure that that's still accessible to people, especially since we're still technically, doing things virtually, and you can do a lot of damage like with your smartphone in the meantime. So yeah, that'll be coming up here pretty soon. So.
And when about is that coming up, and how can people get more information about it?
Yeah, so I'm going to have the information is going to be on my website and in my social media channels. Be able to find it. And the date, let me see, is going to be March 27th. So that's a Saturday morning. So that way, even if people want to be creating outside of what they're doing at work, they can still attend,
That's always a good idea. Yeah. Accessible on the weekends for those of us who have to work during the week.
Absolutely. And I typically have done them during the week, and usually I would give them as an in-person, sponsored, type of thing. And so I think offering it virtually is going to be really fun. Yeah.
A lot has changed in how you deliver your services these days, and virtual is so much more accepted now. And I hope it stays close to that way, because I think it's so flexible for people who, are working moms, or who have people they need to look after at home, older parents, or a new dog or a new baby. Like it's just wonderful how that's changed.
It's interesting too. I was actually speaking with an organization and a university about how it's completely changed placement opportunities for internships for students, and the accessibility to these companies that maybe, like if you're a student and you don't have the money to fly all the way to LA to work for whatever, like you can do research for them virtually and that type of thing. And how cool is that? I agree with you. I hope that most of this is here to stay. I really love it. So.
I do too. I miss people too, but you know what? We can get our fix in other ways.
Absolutely. And I think that it's nice because then when we are finally seeing people in person, it's for pleasantries and for friendship, not necessarily meetings.
Exactly. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so great talking to you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. It's truly been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been so nice to talk to you too, Yvonne. I really, really appreciate you having me on the show.
You bet. Erica Hanna is owner of Puke Rainbows Creative, a creative content strategy and video production studio based in Minneapolis. You can find them online at pukerainbows.com. And of course, Erica's on Twitter. Her handle is @meetErica. You've been listening to the TEN7 Podcast. Find us online at ten7.com/podcast. And if you have a second, do send us a message. We love hearing from you. Our email address is podcast@ten7.com. Until next time, this is Ivan Stegic. Thanks for listening.